Hello, and welcome to Scout Trial YouTube. Today we're going to talk about Clemson football. I'm excited for Clemson football this year. I think they're going to bounce back and have another great year after winning the 2008, 19 national championship in epic fashion over Alabama, as predicted. I really thought they were going to win the whole college football playoff from day one. I said it many times last year. I thought they were more mentally tough and mentally sound defensively and offensively as the year progressed to be able to accomplish what they did in probably the most epic wins in college football playoff history. I mean, they beat Notre Dame 30-3. They beat Alabama 44-16. Yes, they lost a lot of players defensively to the NFL draft, but Coach Venables is a master at rebuilding and bringing things back in a very positive way for his team. He talked about that after last season a little bit on The State, which is Clemson's media channel in-house. Very good coach, like I said, but it's going to be a tough test for them this year. Like I said on my Aggies preview, week 2, they have Texas A&M. They only beat them 28-26 last year. It was a very close game. We all seen how Texas A&M handled LSU at the end of the season. I believe it's going to be a very good game. It's going to be the test, really, to see where Clemson football is for the entire season. They have a lot of tough ACC games. The ACC football has gotten better over the years. I was looking at their schedule. I'm not seeing a lot of losses, a lot of L's there that could happen for Clemson this year if their offense stays as productive as it did last year. They averaged over 50 points a game. That being said, Syracuse is always a tough game for Clemson, and they're going to have to play them this year. They had a great recruiting class. A lot of the top players on our board at college football today. They do a great job at recruiting Georgia, Florida, all those top states. Tyson Palmachong is one of the top quarterbacks in the country that will be learning under Trevor Lawrence for the years to come. Got a great punter coming in Aiden Swanson out of IMG Academy. A lot of good players coming in this year. Jalen Lay at tight end really impressed me. 6'6", 245-pound kid. We'll see if he gets inserted in the lineup this year. That is where they lost somebody. They lost their tight end from last year. They lost Trey Lamar, Kendall Joseph, and Isaiah Simmons at linebacker. They lost Farrell, Wilkins, Bryant, Albert Higgins. We all know about them. Great players, set the tone, won the national championship. Are going to do good things in the NFL too. We will see what happens. Andrew Booth could be the answer to replace the cornerback position. I really liked him out of Lawrenceville, Georgia. Joseph Charleston as well at safety. Extremely good player coming in for the Clemson football Tigers in 2019 recruiting class. Even Landon Zanders at safety out of Shelby, North Carolina. Amazing player. All those guys graded out extremely high in our step ratings. Algorithm, Logan Cash, he could be the answer coming off the edge for them this year, believe it or not. I mean, he's 6'3", 275-pound defensive lineman out of Winder Barrow High School in Georgia. Extremely good player. Vonta Bentley could be an answer. They could be playing a lot of freshmen this year at Clemson. Kane Patterson, linebacker out of Nashville, Tennessee. Also an amazing, outstanding linebacker that Clemson will be able to build around in the future. Caleb Boateng, he was actually rated one of my top tackles, and that's one of the positions on offense that they have to fill this year at left tackle. Caleb is a stud, to say the least. Now, those guys are going to be true freshmen coming in. Some could redshirt, some might not be ready yet, but from watching film, a lot of them can play. Vonta Bentley, a linebacker out of Birmingham, Alabama from Jackson Olin. Extremely good player, fills the gaps, can pass rush, do everything that Clemson football likes to do on defense. Now, going back to their offense was one of the best in the country last year, and they have a lot of returners this year at the wide receiver position for Trevor Lawrence to target, which is going to really help him moving forward down the line this year. He had an epic year last year. Was able to throw for over 3,000 yards offensively. I had 3,280 yards passing, 65% passing ratio in percentage, 30 touchdowns to only 4 interceptions. Very impressive year for Trevor Lawrence. Travis Etienne, in my opinion, sets the tone for the Clemson offense, really establishes the run game, had 26 touchdowns last year, over 1,700 yards from scrimmage. I believe he is the answer. If they're going to have another productive year, he's going to have to step up, have a 2,000-yard rushing season, and do some of the same magical things he did last year for the Clemson Tigers. That being said, they have a tough schedule to hoe. Without that defense coming back, a lot of questions that need to be answered, a lot of players we need to see step up in 2019 for Clemson. But listening to Dabo, he doesn't seem worried about it. Very close-knit group. Most of his coaching staff he knows personally, he played with or coached with throughout the years. They have a rugby mentality, which really has set the tone for them to win games. All about doing the right thing, going to class, getting an education, and winning football games in the process. And being good people, doing it humbly. Even though Clelin Ferrell at the end last year, he didn't want to hear it, saying Alabama was still the better team, even though they beat them in the national championship. It didn't really make sense. But there is more of that SEC bias that we see every year, which really comes into play down the stretch half the time. Not saying I think the SEC is the best conference in football this year from top to bottom looking at it. Like I said, Florida beat Michigan 41-15 at the end of the season. Florida was towards the middle of the top of the SEC. LSU had a great year. They lost to Texas A&M, though, in that epic shootout, 74-72, which really, opened my eyes on Kellen Mond for Heisman Trophy this year. I think he's got an opportunity. But let's talk more about Clemson football. The Clemson football schedule for 2019, we're going to look at it, look at where some hiccups could come along, what they better be prepared for. And, a Clemson man needs no introduction. And, thanks for buying those last year Clemson faithful. Help support college football today. We love the Clemson Tigers, one of our favorite teams in college football today because of Coach Dabo Swinney and his philosophy on building young men and getting them forward in their futures on and off the field of college football today. Now, and we love Brent Venables. Brent Venables is the master at defensive schemes, at setting up how to defeat opponents. I mean, it just showed in the college football playoff, 30-3 against Notre Dame, and then 44-15 against an Alabama team that did put up a lot of points last year. We're going to talk about them on our next video here soon and do our previews from the news feed of college football today. Now, like I said, the opening game, they play Georgia Tech. If Georgia Tech can have a ground and pound philosophy and run their offense to a T, they're going to keep the ball out of Trevor Lawrence's hands and the dynamic Clemson offense that brings back a lot of players this year. They bring back Ross, I believe, T. Higgins. They have weapons galore on the outside for Lawrence to throw to. Georgia Tech, national championship celebration. Hopefully they don't rain on their parade heading into Clemson. But if they can hold the ball long enough and chew up clock, then they are going to keep the ball out of their hands. It could be a close game. We'll see what Clemson's all about. Game one, the second game of the season. I said it in my Texas A&M preview. Clemson takes on Texas A&M again, but this time it's in Clemson, in the real Death Valley. I'm predicting a very close game again. Texas A&M could pull an upset if they come to play. They lost Travion Williams, of course, to the NFL draft. Their star running back. Most of their offense production, Jace Sternberger at tight end, caught a lot of balls. But Kellen Mond seems prepared. And this game's also going to set the tone for the 2019 Heisman Trophy. Trevor Lawrence versus Kellen Mond, in my opinion, and Travis Etienne, he's the key factor in that game. If Texas A&M can't stop the run game, then the passing game is going to evolve, and they're going to be able to go over the top consistently for 4 quarters. And, that'll be the key because Clemson is lacking on defense this year. Not according to their 2019 recruiting class, as I talked about. I really think they had an amazing recruiting class. Obviously, Dabo does a great job of that every year. Moving on to week three, Saturday, September 14th, away at Syracuse. This game came down to the last seconds last year. Syracuse prepares their team very well. We don't know what Syracuse really has this year. We're going to look into them a little bit more as we go forward. But Clemson has to travel to New York away, 7:30 on ABC. That's going to be a game to watch too. So Clemson has 3 tough tests to open the season in Georgia Tech, Texas A&M, and Clemson. And then that's really going to give us more on the 2019 Clemson Tigers and where they really are at this season. Then they have 2 easier games against UNC Charlotte and University of North Carolina. As a keen reporter said that I know, actually from North Carolina in Charlotte at the ACC press conference, they play 10 of their 12 games in the Carolinas. So they don't have to travel very far to go to these opponents, which Dabo seemed to be happy about. He didn't even know about it, which Dabo is so, intuitive on his team and taking care of his players as people first and loving his players, as he said, and putting that as the priority and why they play so hard for the Clemson Tigers, in my opinion. Then Florida State. I think Florida State's going to be a lot better this year. Coach Willie Taggart's in his second year after Jimbo Fisher leaving. This could be a very good game. Very good game. Like I said, though, Clemson gets they get them at home. They get Texas A&M at home. The only real game they go on the road is Syracuse in the beginning of the season. That's really a scare. Chapel Hill should be an easy one. Louisville, they go away to Louisville. That should be another. They put up 77 points against Louisville last year with Petrino leaving due to various reasons. That could be another blowout slaughter fest in Louisville. Boston College. A lot of people are looking this game up according to the trends. This game could be a very good game, but once again, it's homecoming and football reunion day at Clemson. So BC has to come into Clemson. Clemson set up a pretty good schedule this year. Then they got Wofford, FCS opponent, in my top 25 FCS. I want to check that out. Very good opponent, but like I said, they should be overmatched, and it's also another Carolina team coming in, and it should be an easy win for Clemson. NC State, they travel away. NC State hasn't been very good the last few years. They beat them pretty bad last year, I think 44-10. That game as well is going to be on the road, but it's another game that really, they should win. Wake Forest versus Clemson. That's also going to be at Clemson. According to my Clemson insiders, this Wake Forest kind of scares them, but I don't think they should. I got a lot of people that are Clemson fans that work for Scout Trout and throughout the state of Georgia, actually, and they don't see them as a problem either. That's the Senior Day and Hall of Fame Day on Saturday, November 16th, which should be an epic showdown once again for the Clemson offense. I think the Clemson offense is going to be dynamic this year. I think they're going to put up a lot of points. The question is going to be with their defense. If the Clemson offense comes out sputtering, if a team matches up well against them, can the defense step up, create turnovers, really solidify the Clemson legacy on the defensive side of the football? Paul Feinbaum says that they're not ready to win, stuff like that. There's that SEC bias again. There's that, roll tide, blah, 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 blah. I don't agree. I think Alabama is a better football team this year when you look at it on paper, but the game is not played on paper. The game is played on the field. The game is played with bright minds, philosophies, team building, all of those things. Nick Saban said at his press conference, he blames it on his assistant coaches. They're starting to actually lose some recruits because of the turnover rate in the coaching staffs, which would scare me too. They need to build a better bonding unit, in my opinion, at the University of Alabama. Last game of the season, Clemson versus South Carolina, Saturday, November 30th. It's away. We're going to see what happens there. It's a rivalry game. That's going to be usually a close game. If we look back at 2018, it wasn't, but I think it was in Clemson. I'm going to look at their 2018 football schedule again, and we're going to see how that went. But like I said, Brent Venables has his team ready to go every year defensively. There's a lot of questions that need answered. Like I said, Trey Lamar, Kendall Joseph, and Isaiah Simmons are all gone at the linebacking core, but they filled a lot of those gaps in the 2019 recruiting class. I believe that they will have a very good defense once again, but can he bring those players along with Shaq? Shaq should be coming in at linebacker this year, not the basketball player. The defensive line, though, that sets the tone for the Clemson defense really every year. The Texas A&M game last year, 28-26, was the second game. It's the second game again this year, but this time it's not in College Station. It is in Clemson in the real Death Valley, and we will see what happens there. That's going to be a key test that nobody talked about in the ACC Media Day that I didn't hear of, and they really talked about ACC teams and what they were going to go up against and blah, blah, blah. But Texas A&M has a tough SEC schedule. They're one of my dark horses this year to make it to the college football playoff, and Kellen Mond is one of my dark horses to win the Heisman Trophy in 2019. Going out on a limb, nobody else is really saying it. He is a quiet kid, according to my Texas A&M insider, but he lets his play speak for itself. He's also in his second year under his Jimbo Fisher philosophy, keeping his eyes downfield, reading the defense, knowing where to go with the ball, when to go with the ball, how to go with the ball. And I think that's going to play a key part in his game. But Trevor Lawrence is preseason favorite to win the Heisman, in my opinion. As I said, Travis Etienne sets the tone for the Clemson offense, though, and gives him the ability to go over the top to the guys like Ross and Higgins and all those guys. So, I mean, looking at it last year, Boston College was 27-10. That should be a good game this year. Boston College can come prepared, but they really put up a lot of points last year. Syracuse scared them, came down the last seconds. Clemson's defense, if they're not there this year, that could be a question mark. But if we've seen what they did at the end of the season, if that's any prediction on what we're going to get out of Clemson's offense, 30-3 against Notre Dame, 44-16 against Alabama, put up a lot of points against two of the best defenses, in the nation last year. Pitt was even a really good team last year. According to the Notre Dame matchup that they almost beat Notre Dame, it was 17-14 at the University of Pittsburgh. We'll see. The South Carolina game, they let up 35 points at South Carolina last year in that game. So we will see what happens. That's my college football today preview. I predict Clemson to have a great season once again because Dabo Swinney is the GOAT right now in coaching college football, in building young men and having a great philosophy, core philosophy in moving forward to win games. I think Clemson is going to have a really good year. Let's look at their stats one more time because I know I missed some receivers that are going to play an intricate part this year in being able to go over the top. That's why they got Lawrence in the first place. They really wanted to get the ball over. That's why they felt like they lost the year before because Kelly Bryant couldn't push the ball downfield as well as Trevor Lawrence. I think it's more because of Travis Etienne's production at the running back position. He set the tone, was able to ground and pound and grind out them tough yards, 26 touchdowns, as I said. The receiver positions, though, T. Higgins, Hunter Renfrow is gone to the NFL draft. I think that had some great players. Justin Ross, like I said, T. Higgins. We're not mentioning Amari Rodgers, had 575 yards, 55 receptions. The production's back offensively. I think Clemson is going to put up a lot of points. The questions are going to be on the defensive side of the ball, and they have one of the best defensive minds and defensive coaches in the game in Brent Venables. So let's see. Week 2, I'm telling you. Well, week 1, 2, and 3 will tell us where Clemson's going to be when it comes down to the end of the season and the college football playoff, in my opinion. Thanks for watching Scout Trout YouTube.